Welcome to Internal Affairs of the Mind, where we don't chase trends, but we chase the truth, where reflection is weaponized and reality's got no place to hide. Some people preach, some people pretend. Me, I investigate. I'm Greg Thompson, a retired cop with over 2 decades experience, but a lifelong investigator. And now, a full-time interrogator of the human condition. This isn't therapy. It's not philosophy class. It's an investigation into everything they told you not to question and everything you told yourself you didn't have time to. Let's crack today's case. Let's chop it up. What would you think if I told you, keep every stone they throw at you, because you've got castles to build? I don't know who said that line first, but when I heard it, man, I felt it. Because that's exactly what our purpose needs to be. Building our peace, our purpose, our mindset. And if you've been alive longer than a few minutes, you already know. Not everyone out there is cheering your construction. Some people throw stones, some throw boulders. Others, they just want to watch you stop building altogether and invite you into their own misery. This one today is for the builders and for the ones committed to raising up more builders along the way. The ones trying to find a peace in a world that profits off your distraction and your drama. So haters, let's call it what it is. We're living in a world drowning in criticism. Haters, naysayers, keyboard warriors, negativity groupies, or as I prefer to call them, miserable people who refuse to do the work on themselves. People who'd rather drag you into their darkness than climb out of their own. I don't even think most of them realize they're doing it anymore. It's become the language of our time. Cynicism, outrage, negativity. You can't even scroll a feed for 5 minutes without someone trying to pick a fight, throw shade, or feed the beast. And it's not just the comments, it's the tone, their posture, hell, the audacity of some people. There's a constant undercurrent of bitterness that tells you, I may not be happy, but I'll make damn sure you're not either. And if we're not careful, that energy starts to creep into us. Because energy, like it or not, good or bad, is contagious. And before you know it, your mind's been congested. You're replaying their words, defending yourselves to ghosts and strangers who should never have had access in the first place. So let's start with the first field assignment for today. This week, I want you to perform an in my circle audit. Track what people say and how much it drains you. Every post, every scroll, every conversation you have. Take note. Which ones feel good? Which ones seemingly are just fueling some sort of storm? Then cut out one source of that negativity for 7 days and repeat the audit. And here's the worst part. It doesn't even have to be strangers online. Sometimes, probably most of the time, it's the people allowed closest to you. Family, friends, coworkers, people you love, used to love, or the people you allow into your sphere of influence. So why do we keep giving these detractors access to our peace? Why do we care so much about what so-and-so thinks or what they said or what they posted? Why do we feel the need to respond or even entertain this kind of negativity? Why? Because somewhere along the line, we confused attention with connection. We started making the noise relevant to being able to connect with other people. And now we've got people addicted to both giving and receiving criticism like it's required. Now, of course, this isn't a new condition. It's just spreading faster. It is just there are way more microphones and platforms and outlets for people to keep spewing this nonsense. We've over-empowered and emboldened people with a voice that seemingly gets overutilized just to drag each other down. Here's the truth. We can't live our life under the weight of other people's commentary. We can't build our peace while employing our critics as the architect of our blueprints. And while we're on that, let's talk about something else that's been twisting people up inside. this constant chase to fit in versus belonging. See, fitting in requires you to change yourself to meet someone else's expectations. It's a performance, a negotiation for acceptance that always comes with conditions. It's transactional in nature. That's why it eats away at our peace, because we're constantly editing ourselves just to keep the invite. But belonging is different. Belonging is when you can show up exactly as you are, flaws, cracks, scars, everything, and still be welcomed and still be encouraged and supported. It doesn't demand a mask. It doesn't require any sort of audition. It doesn't ask you to shrink. Belonging allows you to breathe and live in peace, just as you are. And the reason so many of us are exhausted, well, frankly, because we've been confusing fitting in with belonging our entire lives. We've been trying to earn seats at tables we shouldn't even be trying to sit at. So, next field assignment for today. Ask yourself, where am I still performing just to be accepted? I want you to think about and identify a space or a group you're shrinking yourself to fit into. Then show up to that same space or interact with that same group authentically you. No edits, no filters, no Kool-Aid drinking. Then take real notice of their responses. I think you'll find out if you truly belong. You want real peace? Stop auditioning for acceptance and start living in alignment. Stop chasing seats at the table. Build the table, then pass the hammer. Let the critics talk. That's the easiest job in the room. While they sit and judge, we move and make. We build from the ground up out of faith, fire, and lessons learned the hard way. Because power doesn't come from their permission, it comes from your purpose, from your resilience. It should never be about fitting in. It needs to be about standing firm and bringing others with you. Every table we build is an act of defiance against that nonsense. Every hammer we pass is an act of empowerment and uplifting of others. We're not waiting for a seat anymore. We're creating spaces, shaping stories, and building a movement that feeds more than just us. So let them talk, and we'll start building. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because if we're going to talk about critics, we've also got to talk about the critic that lives inside us. The voice that sounds a little too familiar, the one that's quick to judge, quick to gossip, quick to tear someone else down, all while pretending it's just me being real. Yeah, that one. But let's keep it a buck. We're not exempt from this. Not me, not you, nobody. We all fall or fell into the same trap. Unless we start getting intentional about it. We got to openly talk about protecting our peace. But peace isn't just protection from other people, it's protection from ourselves too. Sometimes we become the very critic we can't stand to listen to. That's why before I hit post, share, or send, I always ask myself, am I adding to someone's growth or am I just feeding the negativity that tears someone down? Because there's a big difference between speaking truth and fueling destruction or spreading poison. And you ready for this nugget? Once we've accepted our flaws, no one can use them against us. The moment you own your own imperfections, those critics, they lose their leverage. They lose their fuel. And now you can stop wasting energy on playing defense and start building from a place of freedom. The real test of strength isn't how loud or negative people speak, but what those words contribute to the actual build. Okay, next field assignment. For a few conversations you have this week, whether they be online or in person, I want you to listen more than you speak. If the urge to criticize or agree with somebody else's criticism of someone comes up, stop. Ask yourself, helpful or hurtful? If I was a fly on the wall hearing this exact same conversation being said about me, how would I feel? How would I respond? If it's not helpful, the power move is silence. See, when I was an officer, working, and I'm sure a lot of current or former law enforcement officer folks can relate, we had what we jokingly called as the blue light turns. Yeah, our own little drama series that played out every shift. The episodes were all the same, grumbling, complaining, bitching about who did what, who didn't pull their weight, who was messing around with who. We sit in roll call side by side in our patrol cars, venting about the same houses, the same people, the same problems, like somehow running our mouths to each other was going to fix any of it. But the facts, it didn't fix anything, ever. But what it most definitely did was feed our own internal negativity. It fed others' negativity. If you want to belong, you join the complaining. It felt natural, even justified. But all it really did was rot the atmosphere from the inside out. Added to anxiety, created chaos that didn't need to exist. It definitely wrecked relationships through gossip and innuendo. And the worst part, it poisoned the same mindset we needed to serve and protect with clarity and purpose. Hear that again. Doing all of this jibber jabber back and forth, talking nonsense about other people, we poisoned our mindset that needed to be focused on clarity and purpose. We took an oath to be there for others, but somewhere in that noise, we stopped being there for each other and ourselves. And let's be real, before you folks always looking to cop blame pop off the mouth, this isn't just a law enforcement thing. This happens in workplaces everywhere. I saw it when I worked in the corporate world too. Same script, just different uniforms. The gossip, the cafeteria complaining, the quiet sabotage disguised as venting. People clocking in for the day, not to do their job, but just to feed the drama. And before you know it, the break room starts feeling just like that precinct. Heavy, negative, toxic. Different setting, same poison. That's when I started realizing it's not the job that's breaking you. It's the company you keep while doing it. And that's where our audit has to start. Ever heard that saying? Listen carefully to how a person talks about others, because that's exactly how they'll talk about you. When I read that, when I say that, it makes me take inventory, makes me start listening differently to every conversation, not just to others, but also to myself. And here's the hard truth. When you surround yourself with constant complainers, critics, and all that chaos, you start becoming one. You start absorbing that mindset, their bitterness, their limitations. That's why we've got to audit our circle. Look around, ask yourself, who's really adding to your peace and who's subtracting from it? Who's actually challenging you to grow and who's keeping comfortable in the same cycle of complaining? If you can't name at least a few people in your life who inspire and encourage you to level up, it's time to start making room for new voices. Because whether it's your squad, your coworkers, your so-called friends, or worse, your family, proximity is power. And if the people closest to you aren't pushing you forward, then they're pulling you down. You can't build peace in a demolition zone. See, proximity is a choice, and not everyone deserves access to your peace because some people drain it, some distort it. And you know what? Life gets a whole lot better when you figure out who deserves an explanation, who deserves an answer, and who deserves absolutely nothing. If every conversation in your circle starts with gossip, ends with complaint, or lives in negativity, you're not in a growth focused circle. You're, quite frankly, in a cage. And cages weren't built to protect, they confine and limit. So it's time to start being unsympathetic about your VIP list because not everyone deserves a seat in your calm. Not everyone can or needs to go where you're going. And that's not arrogance. That's not you keeping people out because you think you better than them. That's just awareness. You can love people and still love them from a distance. They don't have to be that close if they can't move in the same direction you're headed. You can care for them and still choose not to embrace their chaos. That's their journey. Doesn't have to be yours. Because the bar should be set at your peace comes at a cost. And it's set at a price you set, not them. Now understand, there's going to be people who refuse to pay that price, but they will always accuse you of changing or you being the problem. They'll say, you think you're better. You've forgotten where you've come from. My favorite, you sold out. Nah, simple response. I've leveled up. And leveling up comes with much fewer seats at the table. Once you polish up your circle, you've got to protect that space you just created. That's where the discipline kicks in. So every morning we wake up, we get 24 hours, if we're lucky, 86,400 seconds filled with possibility, potential, and purpose. But how you move in that space is ultimately what defines that day. You can frivolously spend those hours defending yourself against critics, being a critic, scrolling through comparison traps, or wasting precious energy trying to change people who don't want to change. We've already been down that road, and you know that changing yourself takes a hell of a fight. So again, what makes you think you can fix someone who doesn't even want to change or doesn't even recognize the need to change? Or you can wisely invest those hours. The smart money's on investment in growth, in gratitude, in grace. You choose where your peace lives and who rents space in it. Start small. Limit or remove yourself from conversations that seem focused on critique or complaint. Said this before, block, unfollow, mute, but do it guilt-free. Replace gossip with gratitude. Replace criticism with congratulations. And if you catch yourself sliding into old habits, pause. Ask, what's this conversation feeding? Hell, ask them, what are we trying to accomplish with this conversation? If the answer isn't peace, purpose, or growth focused, you already know what to do. So here's your final field assignment to help you along this. I want you to start a journal. Hell, you can make it a note in your phone. Every night for 1 week, I want you to write down, did I build today, whether it be yourself or another person? Or did I complain all day? Then give yourself a grade for the day as a builder or a complainer. This critical introspection and self-audit will help shift your mindset and make us more intentionally aware of how we move throughout the day. I want to leave you with this. You can't build peace with hands full of throwing stones. Drop what's not yours to carry. Every insult, every shade, every critic. Let them carry their own weight. The moment you stop trying to prove yourself to people, to fit in, you begin to reclaim your focus, your time, your energy, and your direction. You stop being a passenger in their chaos and get back behind the wheel of your own calm. Because when the noise fades and the critics run out of energy from lack of fuel, you'll still be standing, still be building, hopefully still at peace. Live each day by this truth from Will Rogers. Let the improvement of yourself keep you so busy that you have no time to criticize others. That's deep. And every time they throw stones, don't dodge them. I'm telling you now, collect them, stack them, because builders need raw materials to build something that stands longer than their opinions ever will. And until next time, I want you to stop chasing seats at the table. Build the table, and then pass the damn hammer. This has been Internal Affairs of the Mind, where we break in, strip it down, and get real. So hopefully together, we can build ourselves back up armed with wisdom. Peace and blessings to everyone. Be kind. Be a good human. Thanks for listening. I'm Greg Thompson, and we'll chop it up next time.